You hear these stories of, they've got the right education, they had the six-figure income, and they gave it up to be an entrepreneur, or they were a business owner from the time they could walk and sell lemonade. And that's not me.
What Ellery Wells shares with us is his simple approach to getting started with the minimum amount of upfront cost. He dispels the myth that you need to be born with some special skills in order to teach online. I'm Steve Atwell, and this is Education Hackers. Born and raised in Texas, and a graduate from Baylor University with a bachelor's degree in psychology with a focus on developmental and behavioral psychology, Ellery Wells is a personal business coach who helps empower and equip entrepreneurs to take their offline expertise and turn it into a successful online business. Ellery is an Amazon #1 best-selling author of his book, How to Start Your Professional Podcast for $200 or Less. He has over 15 years of sales experience, and before starting his own business, he spent 4 years as the top salesperson in one of the largest IT companies in the world. Ellery shares his knowledge and expertise with the readers of his blog and listeners to his podcast. But who is really Ellery Wells?
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me. Who is Ellery Wells? I'm an average dude. There's not a whole lot unique about me. I didn't go to some Ivy League school. I was raised in a small town here in Texas. I didn't start off as an entrepreneur, although looking back, I remember starting like a little detective agency with my sister when I was like 7 years old.
Hold on a second. You had a detective agency when you were 7 years old?
Yeah, I think we were looking for lost cats in the neighborhood, or missing pen. I don't know. I just remember we printed up these really bad business cards. I think it was with Corel Draw or something like that.
Good old Corel Draw.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But so the only reason why I mentioned that, Steve, is a lot of people, I hear stories anyway on podcasts or read books or whatever, and you hear these stories of, they've got the right education, they had the six-figure income, and they gave it up to be an entrepreneur, or they were a business owner from the time they could walk and sell lemonade. And that's not me. And again, the only reason why I mention that is anything that I've done, anything that I've created or learned is all stuff that other people who are listening to this podcast can do themselves. And hopefully that's an encouraging message to them. That's why I even bring that up.
Tell me more about your pastime. What do you like to do when you're not working?
I like video games. I like being outside sometimes when the weather's good. I'm bad at golf, but love playing, like watching TV and movies. I'm kind of your average guy, and I've been podcasting now for, what is this, like the 17th of November, 18th? So a year. My podcast launched just over a year ago, 60 episodes in. So I really enjoy this medium. And you just said we were episode 1. So thanks for honoring with me with helping you get started. You're going to love it. And so I love talking to people. I like doing online business, not to focus too much on that, but just this
this
internet
is all about you, so let's focus on you. What do you do?
Sure. But this internet that we're on, it's changed since it was started 20 years ago, 25, whatever. And it just, you're in Canada, I'm in Texas. We're, I don't know, a couple thousand miles away, and we're able to talk. And I've got a mastermind group with people all over the country and readers all over the world. It's a really cool thing. And so, like I mentioned just a second ago, I love podcasting and I love blogging, and this being able to use the internet to connect with people like you, Steve, who are starting off doing things or already doing awesome things, and just connecting with people all over the world. We've never been able to do that quite like we've been able to do that in just here in the last few years. So that's what I really enjoy doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. My background is IT. I've been in IT for a long time.
Are you on the sales side or like the engineer side?
No, no, not the sales side, on the IT infrastructure side. So managing IT infrastructures for large corporations.
Okay.
I mean, I worked in a few different industries, like the finance industry. I started out in Toronto. And then for the last 17 odd years, I've been in the education sector, higher education sector. And that's one of the reasons why that combination of technology and education, I have a fascination for online learning and online teaching. And that's one of the kind of the motivating factors for starting this podcast, is that I have a fascination for it. And I want to start my own courses. So this is a good way for me to learn from other people too. You know, I have my own agenda here.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. In the book that you had mentioned about starting a podcast, I tell people to be selfish, ask people to be on your podcast and just ask them the questions that you want to know the answer to. It's it's basically free coaching or free consulting if you plan it right. So you're doing what I suggest, and you're doing exactly the right things. Who better to get that information from and to launch your own thing? I mean, that's why Jamie Tardy started Eventual Millionaire. She wanted to be friends with millionaires, and she's done it. And
exactly,
you're doing the exact same thing that a lot of us have done. So props to you.
I'm on the right path. That's good. That's good to hear. So what do you like most about teaching online? I mean, you went online, you started teaching online, you have some video courses. You also do live presentations as well?
I do some here locally, and I'm trying to do those more. And actually, I just put out the question to my Facebook connections if I did do a live Q&A hangout, if anybody would be interested. So that is something that I want to do. And what do I like about it? The first thing that comes to mind is passive income, because you can put something online, and as you know, Steve, once you put it online, it's basically there forever with a screenshot or, whatever. But I like the ability to put something up one time and kind of step back away from it. And I'm still very engaged. I try to respond to most of the comments on my blog posts. I love getting emails. That interaction is fantastic. But I know that if you don't have an element of passive income to your business, you don't work in, no, what's this saying? You don't want to work on your business, but you're working in your business. If you're still trading time for money, you're working in your business and not building. You're just an employee again. And so as soon as you add that passive element, and that's what the internet allows you to do, host videos on YouTube or Vimeo or Wistia, or, there's a dozen probably different ways to host videos. You record them once, you edit them, you spend a few hours doing those kinds of things, and then you upload them, and then you're done. If someone wants to buy them, you just send them a link. Hey, go check out this video, or they can download it, but you're not having to go to the post office and put something in a box and incur all those fees, and then again your time. And that's one of the big reasons why I like doing online business. And even when I used to work for a large IT company here in the Austin area. And I try to get most of my customers to make their purchases and their transactions online. And my whole motivation for these types of things is let's let computers do what computers do and connect on the back end and send the emails. We can have the conversation up front, but then let's offload all of those other things. So automation is a big thing for me as well, passive income. And again, the internet allows us to do all of that. It allows you and I to have this conversation. Yeah, it'd be awesome if we were sitting across the table from one another, having a cup of coffee or something. But you can't do that when you're in Canada and I'm in Texas. But again, so we can do that with the internet.
So you can scale up as well.
Yes, scalability. I should have said that. Thank you for adding that in there. Scalability and automation. And it sounds like I want to have a hands-off business, and that's not the case. But again, through these things like what we're talking about here, Steve, you can You can have the hands-on one-on-one interaction like this, but if someone wanted, like you and I did for scheduling, we chatted, we emailed, we're talking on Facebook, then we took it to email. But then instead of, well, are you free on Tuesday? No, but Wednesday at 3 I am. Well, I can't do 3. We sent each other, or I think you sent me a link and I just checked it. The scheduling, no secretaries needed, no administrators needed, no calendar checking. It was all automated. And that's the kind of stuff I love.
And creating a system, everybody talks about creating a system. When you're online and you're creating a business, you have to have your system. So once you have that system, you've automated it, basically runs on its own. So it's just getting started, implementing it, and automating it. And
Absolutely.
That's where a lot of people get hung up. I think for me, I'm creating a Udemy course right now. One of my biggest hang-ups, and I think a lot of people go through this, is like, when do you draw the line and say, okay, this is good enough? Or you have this, what they call imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel that what you're producing is good enough. Where do you draw that line? How do you draw that line?
I do private paid masterminds, Steve, and one of the guys who joined my last mastermind group, he said that exact same thing. How do you deal, or that's one of the things he struggled with is imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it? And I don't have a silver bullet or the golden answer for that. But one thing that I will say, and I did write a blog post about this because I've dealt with it myself, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel to be successful. And as entrepreneurs, as people like you who are creating a course, and you think, well, this has been done before. Well, let's just assume McDonald's was the first hamburger shop. It wasn't. But that would mean every single place that sold hamburgers since 1950, whatever, when Ray Kroc started McDonald's, they have all been imposters. But no, that's not true, because they've got their own special sauce. They have their own way of doing things. They have their own perspective. A Wendy's hamburger isn't going to be the same as Burger King or McDonald's, or any of these local places we have down here in Austin, like Mighty Fine, or if you've had In-N-Out Burger. They're all different, but they all may have had this idea of being an imposter because of what McDonald's started in the 1950s. And the same is going to apply to you and me, Steve, is every time we see, if you wanted to do this podcast, let's take your podcast, for example, your personality, your point of view, all of those things that make you are going to make your product different and unique. Sure, there might be a similar idea, but there's been 6 billion people on the planet for several years now, and going back, a couple thousand years of humanity, how likely is it that we will actually have a completely unique idea anymore? Odds are probably pretty small.
That is so true. I mean, if you look at the App Store on the Apple or Android App Store, almost any idea you can think of has already been done. It's just that when you produce an app, I created an app for IT professionals in British Columbia, Canada here. And I created the app because I just wanted to give back to the IT community, something where they could use they could use this app, look up information on different IT resources and jobs and so on. And I did it just because I wanted to create something. But when I was looking at the App Store in terms of creating something to monetize, and I'm looking at all the apps on there, it's no longer unique. You have to have, like, the idea is not unique, but you have a different slant on it, or a different way of presenting the information or the application, so that there is something different about it, but the idea is not totally unique.
Well, yeah, look at the movie Exodus that's coming out, big Hollywood production. That's an idea 2,500 years old.
Yeah.
So there's, when you're talking about imposter syndrome, it's really, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit strange, but it's the 100% truth. It's just fear. It's self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that I don't think anyone completely conquers it. I think I'm probably got the name of the person in this toy wrong, but I think it was George Carlin. He did comedy for 50 years and he threw up If this is the right person, it could be a different name. But he threw up before every single performance when he went on stage. 50 years of comedy, got nervous to the point of throwing up. And maybe it became his kind of good luck charm over a few years. But he was so nervous after doing it for so long. And he was a pro at the top of his game. It's just one of those things that we have to act in spite of it. And imposter syndrome, that's just your self-doubt saying, hey, maybe now's not the right time. Or is this really a good idea? Is it really unique enough? Is it good enough? And you have to learn to ignore that as much as possible, because it probably will never go away. And the people who are ultimately successful are the ones who can get used to acting in spite of.
Actually, that's a key word, is action, I think. I think you got to set a deadline and say, I'm going to produce this within this period of time. No matter how badly I think it sucks, I'm going to produce it. And I'm going to show it, and I'm going to give it to the world and let them decide what they think. Because what I think may not be good enough, other people may think it's awesome. So I think one way is to just set a deadline and just produce.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Steve.
Yeah. So tell us, what platform are you actually using to create your courses?
The platform that I use, Steve, is I would recommend it, first off. But my business model for the last almost 3 years has been sweat equity. How I learn how to do it myself to save money. And the brief history of that is I didn't want what started off as a hobby, my blog and then podcast, I didn't want those things to be where I spent a lot of money. I would have rather spent that money on video games and cigars and fun stuff. Not that I love this. This is super fun too. But, I would have rather, spent money on that instead of on Infusionsoft or Wish List Member or Optimized Press. And if I'm going too technical for who your target audience is, let me know. Okay.
No.
Okay, so you're with me. So instead of doing those kinds of things, I tried to find low cost or free ways to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish instead of spending. The wish list member, for what I wanted, it would have been $300. I would want to use it on multiple sites. It's $100 for one site. Same thing for Optimized Press. We're talking hundreds of dollars for these kinds of things. So I was thinking, if I can just spend, a week or two trying to figure out how to do this in my spare time, that's more money for my hobbies or more money that I can spend on something else. So I use WordPress for everything. I use a free plugin called Membership. I think it's just called Membership, not any words or phrases before and after it. And all it does is password protect pages.
By the way, anybody that's listening in and tuning in, we're talking about software that you can use to create your online courses. So Wishlist is one of them. Members is another. A lot of these plug into WordPress. So yeah, so you're using Members?
Yes, and I think it is Members. Yeah, Members by Justin Tadlock. And it's nothing fancy at all. It just creates a password or requires a login to access pages. So my course, for example, is 20 or 30 pages within, not in my base root directory. It's ellerywells.com/something/something. So they're somewhat hidden anyway, but they are password protected. I don't want people to be able to just search either a sitemap or something like that and be able to go directly to them. So I've hidden them behind that stuff, and each page I've gone in and created the index pages of the table of content and linked to those. So it's really nice and it flows really well. But that was my alternative, Steve, to spending $300 on Wishlist. Or there's a free, I don't know how much longer it will be free, but ifsimply.com, I can't spell, IFSIMPLY. It was created by a friend of mine, Keith Griffiths, and I think it's a free or pretty low cost platform for creating these online courses. It's hosted on their site, so it's not a plugin for WordPress. I think it can be, but they just have their own dedicated servers, and it takes that load off of your website, and it's designed specifically for creating online communities and courses. So that's another alternative. But that's how I started, Steve. I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to spend $300 on wish list or $100. I would have rather gotten a video game or two, or a box of cigars, or gone out to a movie night with my wife. And so that I kind of built it. I don't want to say by hand, because I got a lot of help and I learned a lot through the process. But so yeah, I still 99% of the time use WordPress, which is free.
Yeah, I use WordPress on all my sites. WordPress is great. You have to be careful. I'll just reiterate this because I'm noticing recently more hacker activity. So I created a YouTube video. By the way, I'll put in the show notes all the links that Ellery is talking about and any links that I mention. But I created a YouTube video on how to lock down WordPress using a free WordPress plugin. But WordPress is great. I use it on all my websites. It's awesome. There's lots of plugins. Almost anything you can think of in terms of creating courses, you can get a plugin for. So Members is one of them. That's what you're using, Ellery. So how do you like that particular plugin, and does it work well for you?
It's almost love-hate. It does exactly what I need it to, but I don't really like it. I mean, there are no features. It does the job. If you want to password protect, you can create access groups just like you can on wish lists or some of these more premium tools. And so on my expertise course, I go in and I what does it say? Is it something like content access? It gives you a little module just like WordPress SEO does, or anything below your blog post or your page. And you can put a checkbox for only give access to people who are of this membership level.
So you have protected access.
Yeah, so it does that, but it doesn't look super fancy. It doesn't come with any extra buttons, or it doesn't create any copy for you, great sales pages or anything like that. It is extremely basic, but for free, it does the job really well.
Have you tried Paid Memberships Pro?
I looked at that actually before I even created my course, because I thought about creating just a straight membership site. Didn't look at it again. I probably forgot about it, but now you say the name, I have heard it a few times. Is that something that because they have a free option, right?
It's totally free. It is totally free, but you do, if you want support for it, you run into issues and you want support, then you pay for the support. I think it's I can't remember. I think it's like $99 per year.
Okay.
For the support, but it's another free option. There are other plugins. Actually, there's quite a few plugins for WordPress. But let's talk about what you're using. Okay. And also you have video courses, right?
Yes.
These are all video courses. Yes. So where are you hosting these?
That's a good question, and I'm glad I went into some detail about the bootstrap, the sweat equity part, because this applies to. I did my research on Amazon S3. Vimeo Pro, YouTube, and a handful of different options. So they're all on a unlisted YouTube list, and they're embedded on those pages. I looked at Vimeo Pro. It's $200 a year, and it would have been great, I think. Amazon S3, their math is a little bit complicated. And here's why I went with just the way that I did, Steve. And maybe you say, Ellery, that's not a good idea. But YouTube is free. You can't get there by Google searching. The videos are still only accessible basically through my site. And I thought, well, once I get to the point where I need to pay or could justify paying $200 a year, or pay per view, basically is what Amazon S3 does, this part of the business will pay for itself. And I haven't seen a need for it. So to answer your question, they are still YouTube. I upload, since most of my stuff is screen shares, and we're talking about how to navigate within WordPress and the DIY part of building an online business, I record in 1080p. YouTube has no problem with that, and it's been a great solution for me so far.
That's what I was going to ask you, actually. The normal YouTube videos, they have a certain resolution limit, right? you can record up to 1080p. So you're able to do that.
I go in and they go to 1080p. Not by default. You have to upscale it, or not upscale it, but you have to choose the option. But yeah.
Well, you have to record it first.
Right.
That brings me to another question. I mean, you're recording in 1080p. Mm-hmm. So what are you using? Are you using ScreenFlow for that?
An old version of Camtasia. And if anybody's looking at Camtasia, their latest version, I got a 30-day trial. Anybody can. It's beautiful, and it works really good. I'm on like version 6. It's 3 years old, but yeah, I just use Camtasia.
So using Camtasia, uploading to YouTube, and then on your website using WordPress and members, and then you're feeding that into your website.
Yep, through the iframe embed code.
All right, so that's the technical side of things. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, if that's over anybody's head, sorry about that.
Oh, no, well, we're both techies, so...
Well, if they aren't, they're probably going to pay somebody to do it. So if they're listening to this, they're probably the DIY type anyway. So hopefully, if it doesn't make sense yet, it will after just a few weeks of study. Because I've said this before, Steve, I'm not ashamed of it. When I first started, I had never even heard the word WordPress before. I'd never heard of podcasting before I started. And that's why I said earlier, anything that I've done, anybody listening to this can do as well. So if some of this stuff seems a little bit weird and it doesn't make sense, it didn't to me in the beginning either. So
nothing beats getting your hands dirty and getting in there and trying to do something yourself until you realize, okay, this is too much work. Now you got to find somebody else to do it for you. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I always take this approach. When I created my app last year for iOS, I had been paying Apple $99 for years, and I hadn't actually created an app. So I said, okay, I got to create an app. I have some time. I went through the whole process. I installed the software. Even though I'm techie, I had never actually coded in C or Objective-C before. So it was a little bit of a learning curve. Installed all the software, went through the process. I created an app. Within a couple of weeks, I had the app. But I used the right tools, and I created the app. And once I went through the whole process, I knew what was involved. I said, okay, I can create an app. I can do this. But do I want to do this again? Probably not. Like, because I know how to do it, I can probably outsource it. And I'm in a better position because I can monitor their progress and see how they're doing better because I know the process. I know how it's done. Anybody listening in, if you don't know what WordPress is or any of these tools, it's nice to actually try them out and experiment with them. Even if you don't have the time or the technical knowledge, get some familiarity with it so that when you do outsource it and you do hire somebody else to do it for you, you're in a much better position to monitor their progress.
Yeah, if they say, oh, it's going to take 6 months, you can say, well, no, I could do this in about 3 weeks. The same principle applies when you go out to eat. You know, you could probably cook that steak and make those mashed potatoes yourself, or you can have the experts do it. And if they say it's going to take, hey, it's going to, 2 hours to get you the steak, no, you can probably cook that in about 12 minutes. And the same thing applies when you're building a website. The educated buyer, even if you're buying somebody's services, you're going to be in a much better position than if you had no clue at all.
Absolutely. So tell us about your course. What's your most successful online course?
So my big course right now is called Turn Your Offline Expertise into an Online Business. And it's all about taking what you know and sharing it with the world because of the benefits that we have talked about in this episode of scalability, automation, a global reach, accepting payments from anywhere, those kinds of things, leveraging the power of the internet. You can change the world or benefit the world with what you know. And so in that course, it's 20 to 25 different modules all about setting up WordPress, how to create your first product, how to distribute that product. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm going to sell my ebook and people are going to buy it. That's cool. But how do you actually upload that product somewhere so that someone can add it to their cart, click checkout, make a payment, and then receive that product? So how do you make those the behind the scenes stuff work? And I didn't find a whole lot of people that were teaching that. And if you're going to make an online business, you have to know some of these things. So leveraging social media, how to get the back end of your website going. Again, it's all very do-it-yourself focused, just all those kinds of things on how to make your business go from nothing. I have no website and no idea, all the way through finding your audience, figuring out the type of product that you want to create and deliver, all the way through the point that the customer would see of adding it to their cart, checking it out, and then getting something in their inbox that they paid for. All of those steps in video and audio modules. There's only one text module, and it's about blogging for business. So I felt that was fitting. All the other ones are audio and video. They're multimedia on demand.
Sounds great. Now, what payment system do you use? There are a number of payment systems available online, and another one through Apple just started out. But the most popular is PayPal, and then there's Stripe. There are a few others. I think one of the things you gotta consider is, who is your target audience? Where are they located mostly? Is it North America? Is it Europe? Is it Asia? Because some of these payment systems work better in certain geographical areas. What do you recommend in terms of payment?
Sure. Good question, and good background on that as well. I have done a fair amount of research. I've even blogged about it in some free, just anybody can go and find them blog posts about which ones to use. I use PayPal, and here's basically the reason why, Steve, is pick one and use it. You can spend hours or days debating PayPal versus Square versus Google Wallet or whatever, when you're really only talking about 0.3% of a difference. So like PayPal, maybe 2.7% in your fees. Square might be 2.6 or plus 30 cents or 25. If you made $10,000, you're talking like a $40 difference. So too many people get caught up on which one to use instead of choosing one and going with it, knowing that you can change it down the road, or just start making money now instead of after you've debated it online and on Facebook and Google searches for a week. Let's get started now. I use PayPal. I don't have a whole lot of plans to choose because it's probably one of the oldest, most recognized platforms. I have had sales all over the world, and no one's complained to me about the issue. So I know for a fact it works in Australia and Germany and the United States. So PayPal's what I use.
Reading articles online, I had seen some marketers and some people complaining about different platforms and different products that they were using in terms of payment systems. So I was just curious to see what you are using. PayPal is definitely easier. You just plug it in and you're ready to go. For example, with Stripe, you need to have an SSL certificate installed on your website, because by default, what they give you is more of a developer type interface. So they give you some code, you plop it into your website, but it's not secure by default. You have to have an SSL certificate.
And those are expensive unless you can basically borrow one from like Bluehost. I think Bluehost has that option, but
yeah, I think it's there's different levels. I think it's anywhere from $20 and up per year for an SSL certificate. But that's not the thing. A lot of people don't know what an SSL certificate is and how to install it and how to make sure it's working. So that gets into the techie side. Whereas with PayPal, you just get a little bit of code, you put it on your website, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, it just opens a new tab that's on PayPal servers, not mine, and then you can go in and redirect. Once people have checked out, you can redirect them back to your site or to a different link. I think people are kind of used to those kinds of things. I obviously tech savvy a little bit. I look for the HTTPS, the secured there. But if I've bought several things where I get redirected to a PayPal link and then just get sent back. So it's not, I don't see it as a negative thing at all.
No, for sure. I mean, you have to be secure online, especially when you're using your visa information and providing that online. So always look for that SSL certificate being active and the website URL being HTTPS. The S meaning it's secure. Yeah, so we've talked about a number of tools. And you tell me one tool that you just can't live without, that you absolutely need to create your online courses.
I don't know. I mean, in its basic form, Steve, you have to have the.
Could it be Camtasia? You absolutely need Camtasia.
I mean, yeah, that's a easy one to go to because my first couple of videos, I tried to do a Google Hangout on air, broadcast to no one, and then use that video, but you have zero room for error because it's a pain, if not almost impossible, to edit that. So if you're going to be creating an online course, yeah, Camtasia, ScreenFlow, something like that, so that you can record and edit your workflow, because that's what I try to do, is record you the exact process. That's pretty necessary.
So Ellery, take a few minutes and provide your most practical advice to anybody trying to create their own online course.
So since this is your very first episode, maybe this would be a good place to start, Steve. And I'll give you an idea of one of the modules that I talk about in my course, if that's okay. So whenever any blog or business, there are a few key components to every successful website. Two of those are your homepage and your about page. And I go into some more detail, but on those, I'm going to assume that your listener, if you're listening to this right now, you have WordPress set up and you know how to log in. So go to your WordPress dashboard, go to Pages, Add New, title it About, make sure the slug, the URL is your url.com/about. That's easy. Don't do about me, don't do about us, just do /about. And then tell us who you are. And even if you're just a solo person, you're one person out there blogging, podcasting, selling ebooks, whatever it is, tell us who you are. Tell us your story, how you got there. Make it, 600, 700, 800 words. Make it lengthy enough so people can really get a feel for who you are, what you're about. Put a headshot on there. Make it at least somewhat professional. No out partying, but on mine, I've got a picture of my wife and I next to a waterfall on our vacation in Costa Rica. People, when they go to your site, they want to know who they're about to read, who they're about to listen to, who they are about to buy from, and they want to know who you are, where you came from, where you're going, some of your beliefs, and just so that they can get to know you a little bit. Nobody likes these concrete and steel companies. They want to get to know you, and I think that's it's going to be one of the most popular pages on your site, the About page. But it's also going to create a lot of value, and it could be a good conversion point if you're looking for opt-ins and things like that too. But people just want to know you; they want to know who you are and what you're about. So, in your dashboard, Pages, Add New, About, type it up, press Publish, add it to your menu. And, don't be afraid to be yourself.
So if you have a website, just follow Ellery's advice and get a good About page. That's one of the most difficult pages, I think, to create, is talking about yourself. I mean, I have a hard time creating an About page every time I create a website. But we've reached the end of the show, and Ellery, I really want to thank you for being on the show and sharing such incredible advice and technical information about how you are going about creating your online courses. And I think that's going to be very, very useful to our listeners. But before I let you go, where can people get a hold of you online?
You're very welcome, Steve. Thank you for having me. Good luck with your show. You're off to a great start. Great questions. You can get in touch with me at ElleryWells.com. Everything that I have is from there. You can connect with me on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn from there. You can listen to my podcast from there and my blog. I hope you do all of those things because I'd love to connect with anybody listening to the show. So ElleryWells.com.
If you enjoyed this episode, just subscribe to the podcast and future episodes will be downloaded automatically for you. Check out the show notes at educationhackers.com to get links to resources we talked about in this episode. See you next time.